So, a recurrent phenomenon in Nigeria's public life, the sheer exasperating difficulty of governing this country. A country that at the best of times seems to be full of suspicious discontent, especially when it comes to its leaders. Nearly 8 years in, as the ruling APC's President Buhari prepares to bow out, Mr. Buhari delivers what his critics say is a bloody nose to his own party by way of what's been described as one of his most insensitive interviews ever. It is given to the Tambourine Hausa TV and is the first time in a while that Mr. Buhari has spoken out on national issues such as food security, corruption, insecurity, and the economy. So what was it about this particular interview that rubbed some people up the wrong way? And in the face of its own internecine problems, is it likely to help the PDP in its rivalry with the APC as they both try to stake a claim to the leadership of this country amid robust attempts by Labour and the NNPP to rewrite Nigeria's political map? Well, for all this, I'm joined now in the studio by the public policy expert, Professor Usman Yusuf, who is also Secretary to the Chief of Defence Staff's committee that negotiated the release of the last batch of train hostages and who was Executive Secretary of Nigeria's National Health Insurance Scheme, NHIS, and perhaps significantly is a supporter of the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start with that interview. What's your assessment of that interview given by President Buhari to that Hausa language TV station? I assume you watched it.
Yeah, I watched it. I mean, painfully too. It's like going to the dentist without anesthesia.
Well, that must have been pretty painful.
Very painful. The reason is the president came across as a person who is disconnected from realities of our people. No compassion at all. Minimizing the sufferings of our people. So, a disconnected president, no compassion, chuckling.
But when you say disconnected, what do you actually mean? Because I mean, we know that President Buhari is not the most emotive person, but that doesn't mean he's not connected.
He is not connected. He's never been throughout his 7-8 years. I'm from Katsina, where he comes from. We've never had this insecurity in my state, the president says, like we have. A third of my state is under siege by bandits. He doesn't talk to nobody. He doesn't go.
But you worked under him, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. He doesn't send.
He managed to connect with you at that point.
It wasn't. I didn't know him before coming to connect with me. At the end, there was disconnection.
So the connection didn't stay connected.
But the honest truth is, Charles, this country, people are going through difficulties.
You need an empathetic president.
People are pushed to the wall. Inflation. The worst insecurity of our lifetime, hunger, insecurity, and a president that is saying the hunger, anybody in this country who goes hungry is his fault.
Well, I was going to bring that up with you because there seem to be hackles raised by what he said that Nigeria has enough land and rainfall. He talked about it in that interview because I saw the translation. And because the borders were closed for 2 years to boost local production of rice, no one in this country should be hungry. And you thought that was insensitive.
Very insensitive. Not even the United States, where I've lived longer than I've lived here, the richest country in the world, would President Biden come and say there's no hunger and it is people's fault for going hungry. There is hunger in the richest country in the world, that is the United States.
But let's put it in context.
Let's put it in context here. He knows.
What was the context in which he said that?
Right, the context in which he said that is that he was asked about, he was talking about food security, and he said his government shut the borders from Chad Republic all the way across the northern border down to Benin Republic. Why? To stop the importation of rice. And he said because of that policy, the production of rice has gone up in Nigeria. I don't know who is telling him something. Before this government came in 2014, the price of 50 kilograms rice was 17,000. Now it's over 30,000, heading to 40,000. The minimum wage in this country, in states that pay minimum wage, is 30,000. So, you get a paycheck, you cannot even buy rice. Rice is out of reach of the common man. I don't know who is telling him stories. You remember a few months ago, they put up pyramids of rice here in Abuja. And they took him and they were going to invite foreign dignitaries to come and see there is rice production. Well, if you show that, crash the price of rice to where you found it. So it is all big show. I don't know who is advising him. The honest truth, Mr. President, is that there is hunger in the land. There is insecurity. People are not going to the land to farm. Even if they do go, bandits are asking them to pay levies before they access their land or access their products. And there has been flood from Jigawa down to Bayelsa and Anambra State. People cannot go to the farm. And he's saying it's people's fault? Come on, Mr.
Well,
President.
again, that's why I said it's important to put it in context. Because the reason I say that is that there is the expectation, there's a lot of expectation on government in this country. I mean, people are throwing pieces of dirt out on the road in their neighborhood and saying the government doesn't come to clean the streets when they could easily pick up their own dirt. I mean, I can to some extent understand the president's frustration if he says that I have tried to create an enabling environment for you, beyond the insecurity, obviously, that is a different question, but that I have tried to create an enabling environment for you, and you simply don't pick up the slack. You expect me to go to the farm and to create the industries and so on that will actually farm for you, whereas it's the private sector that should do that. And I just give you the opportunity, and then you take advantage.
And that's absolutely wrong. Long before the president came, people have been farming. There's a lot more hunger today than there was before his time. Rice was cheaper, all the grains were cheaper than before he came. And all these loans they say they are given from central bank to people, who are they giving loans to? Not our farmers, and we don't see that. You go to the farm today, you go to the markets today, the prices are way up. What enabling environment has he provided?
Well, the argument that they've made, and I have to play the devil's advocate because they're not here to defend themselves, but the argument that they've made is that they provided the seedlings and all the environment and so on, but some people took advantage of it and started going across the border to sell the rice, and then it started coming back through porous borders, and the price went up.
No, and that's not true. After 2 years of closure of the border, the president himself came and said the closure did not achieve its goal. The goal was to stop importation of arms, stop importation of rice. It did not achieve those goals at all. So it wasted 2 years. I mean, Charles, I get really emotional about that. I'm a physician. I go to hospital. I see children with marasmus and kwashiorkor. There are millions of families that go to bed hungry in this country. Women, predominantly women and children, and wake up with no certainty or guarantee of something to eat. Here we are with a president that says it's people's fault for going to bed hungry. Let us move on before I...
Yeah, but I mean, I was just going to say that isn't that, I mean, almost a staple of a developing country, that you're going to find staggering levels of poverty.
Good. But we look at the level of corruption. We look at the resources that this country has. And you look at the penury and the poverty, sea of poverty, wherever you go. Even in the so-called rich states, sea of poverty everywhere.
Well, let's talk about corruption, because that's another thing he talked about in that interview. He seemed to be blaming Nigerians for not reporting corruption, and he also suggested that, I think along the same theme, that he regrets the Accountant General's alleged involvement in the disappearance of 109 billion naira. So he appeared to be concerned about corruption.
Yeah, I mean, he's not been concerned for the past 7.5 years. We have 6
Well,
months
that's
to
not
go.
entirely fair, is it?
It's
I mean,
6 months. We have 6 months to go, and I will give you my experience as a chief executive in the NHIS
right.
about the TSA, because he brought the TSA.
That's the National Health
right,
Insurance.
Insurance. I was the chief executive National Health
Yes.
Insurance from July 2016 to July 2019, and in the interview, he brought up the argument that he created, the government created TSA. Treasury single account, that all MDAs, all ministries, departments and agencies of government migrate your money from commercial banks into the TSA for government to have a better look at it.
Control.
Absolutely. That's a noble idea. But I will tell you my experience with the TSA. I came in July 2016. And they were supposed to have migrated from September the year before, 2015. When I came in July 2016, nobody in the NHS could tell me what amount of money NHS has. So I instituted an independent forensic audit of all our accounts with all the banks. And what we got out of that is alarming. The 13 commercial banks have refused to migrate NHIS money from their commercial banks into the TSA in billions. Close to 100 billion. And I did all the report, bank by bank by bank by bank by bank, and sent it to everybody. My minister presented it to my board and sent it to the president through his late chief of staff, and I sent it to the governor of Central Bank. I sent it to our chairman, House Committee on Health. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Well, I sent it to the EFCC too. And there is a bank owing NHIS, holding NHIS money. I'll give you an example, 11 billion. 11 billion, and this is for years, several years, not paid, not moved it to the TSA. And so when I took them to the EFCC, okay, we'll agree payment arrangement, we'll be paying you 10 million every year. That will take a lifetime. So if you hear EFCC has recovered 5 billion for NHIS, this is coming bits and pieces. And then the TSA, let me tell you the story about the TSA. And he mentioned the Accountant General of the Federation. He lamented how disappointed he was with the Accountant General of the Federation because he is supposed to be the custodian of this TSA, and he's alleged to have embezzled 109 billion.
Yeah, but he was caught, though.
Yeah, 109 billion over a 7-year period. I want Nigerians to do the math. 109 divided by 7, all they needed to take was 15.5 billion annually to accumulate 109 billion. Well, from the NHIS, 6 months after I resumed office, I came in July. On December 28th, 2016, I was out of town. My people in my account said, they have debited 5 billion out of NHIS account without consulting me, the chief executive, or even asking for my consent. Who is they? And I went and sat down with the Accountant General of the Federation. Why was this money taken out of my account? He said he acted on directive. Whose directive? The directive of the Honorable Minister of Finance then. Kemi Adeosun was her name. I wrote a letter. I want to come and sit down with you and discuss with you. She refused to see me. And I went and reported her to the SGF then, Engineer Babachir Lawal. And he called her in my presence and said, allow this gentleman please to come and discuss this with you. She never did. So 5 billion on the 28th of December 2016, taken without my talking to me. I kept writing to everybody, nobody responded. January 2018 too, it debited another 5 billion out of NHIS TSA account without consulting me. That is 10 billion from NHIS TSA account without consulting me. I exited the NHIS in July 2019, and during COVID, in September 2020, the same office of the Accountant General debited the TSA account of the NHIS 6.2 billion. So over a period from 2016 December to September 2020, they had taken, the office of the Accountant General, getting directive from whoever, debited NHIS TSA account 16.2 billion. No consent of the chief executive, and not accounted for.
Because I was going to ask you, what was the money for?
Hold on, they don't tell you. Government needs money, but talk to me. And I sent it to everybody. Everybody.
Well, I mean, again, as I said, that there is nobody here to. I mean,
Call
we're not
them.
necessarily casting aspersions on what you're saying, because obviously you're the chief executive, so you would know what's going on. But we have to kind of
I understand
balance
that.
it, because they're not here
Absolutely.
to defend
and they don't need to be
themselves.
here. And I asked the EFCC, all they need to do, subpoena the NHIS TSA account from December 2016 to September 2020 and see these deductions and ask what were they for? Who did it? So the TSA account, noble idea, but they found ways of going around and taking money from MDAs. I can attest to the NHIS because that's what I know, and that's who I complained to everybody. Nobody did anything. So for the president to say in that interview that the interviewer should tell the president any corruption that he knows of that they did not know anything about, and I'm saying it, I reported to everybody that needed to know. Nobody did anything about it.
Well, I mean, again, as I said, I am not a defender of the president or his position or whatever, but it is quite possible that he was not aware of the specific movement of money that you're talking about, because when clearly they became aware of the corruption from the accountant general's, the alleged corruption in the accountant general's office, the disappearance of 109 billion naira, they acted, didn't they?
Well, Charles, it took them 7 years to discover that. Every Nigerian, we're not fools. It took them 7 years to realize that somebody has gone with 109 billion, a single person.
But you could make the argument that the accountant general is the person who is in charge of
and he
the
cannot
accounts.
do this alone.
And he can manipulate these things in such a way that, I mean, allegedly,
and
that no one else might discover.
Right. So, fellow Nigerians, I'm telling you, nobody can tell us we did not know. Nobody can tell us TSA was full safe, and I have the experience, and this is what I'm telling everybody.
Well,
there is 16.2 billion of NHIS money, and I'm passionate about the NHIS. It's an agency that can do a lot of good to people. And out of this agency, somebody is taking out 16.2 billion that we can help our people.
But the point, though, is returning to that interview, the fact is that the president acknowledged in that interview that money had gone missing, and that he was extremely disheartened as a result of that money going missing, and the fact that they went after it and have attempted to arrest the situation is to some extent credit to them.
Yeah, it's no consolation to us.
But the point here is that, I mean, his supporters would say that isn't this considerable focus on your part on an interview given to a Hausa language service by President Buhari just another attempt by Atiku supporters like yourself to do a dive bomb attack on the APC and the president, and it really isn't as corrosive as you're trying to make it out to be?
Actually, it's more corrosive. The deeper you dig in, the worse it is. I'll give you an example. No less a person than the Chief of Naval Staff told us about the oil bunkering in the Niger Delta. This president, when he was the head of state in 1984, made a decree against oil bunkering. Now they say a ship, huge cargo ship, comes and sucks oil in millions of barrels and sets sail. You catch him on sea, no papers. And the other day, I saw the MDs, the GMD, NNPC going and say, oh, Tompolo has discovered pipelines that they've been sucking oil for the last 9 years. Who is the Honorable Minister of Petroleum? You tell me.
Well, the president did.
The president himself.
Yeah.
And it happened under his watch. And all these things, all the ministers will leave and
so
go.
You would like him to take more responsibility for things like that, because the buck stops on his desk.
Absolutely, nowhere else. Nowhere else. I mean, and many other things you hear. So nobody can give us any excuse. Fellow Nigerians, 2023 election will be a referendum on the APC.
Well, that's what I was going to come to.
Yes.
Because, I mean, let's turn political, which
Go
to
ahead.
some extent is related to all of this. Beyond this interview, do you think the APC can manage to defy its deluge of critics, including yourself and the many who stand opposed to the way they say the country's been run for the last 8 years by the APC government, and make a political comeback under Mr. Tinubu?
Good luck. But I am telling Nigerians, particularly young Nigerians, that 2023 election is a more important election than 2015 or 2019. It is a referendum against the APC. They came to tell us 3 things. They were going to take care of corruption, and this is what we are seeing, and I can attest to that. They're going to take care of insecurity. Nigeria has never been more insecure than it is now. And they're going to improve the economy. The economy is nosediving. I don't know whatever anybody says. The dollar, where is the dollar now? Hitting the ceiling above 800. They met it at 167. Inflation was 21.3 in October. Inflation everywhere. People, the paycheck cannot even buy food for families. People are pushed to the wall. So the 3 things they came with: insecurity, corruption, and the economy, they have failed. So what are they going to tell us? And I tell the APC, all over I go, I tell the youth, the APC should be going around this country apologizing to us, asking us for forgiveness and asking God Almighty to forgive them for what they have put this country in. This country is in a ditch. A bus is in a ditch. You're not going to change the drivers and think that car will go out. So we are going to hold Tinubu Shatima ticket responsible and explain the APC mess they put us in. Tinubu is part and parcel, is the grandfather of the APC. No member of the APC is going to absolve himself from this failure of 8 years. None. And we're going to hold them accountable for the 8 years. They are not going to say, oh, he's a brand new person, we are going to do this, do this. No. You put us in 8 years, and I am telling fellow Nigerians, it will be suicidal for us again to entrust the same party to this country for what they have done to us. These are the same people. We need a change.
On a practical level, in terms of the margins between the front-runner presidential candidates in this election, I mean, I know you're a very close observer of what is happening. Do you think those margins have grown tighter, or has the gap between them widened in terms of their chances of winning?
All right. So how do you gauge the margins? I've seen polls that make no sense to my people. I've seen people bring in polls. I just
well, they
laugh.
don't make sense because they don't favor your
No.
candidate.
I live in the United States. You live in the UK. You know, polls there. Scientific people get. Oh, we got this. How did you get this information? We got this information by phone, and I laugh. How many of our people have phone? I'm in touch with they don't even know what you guys are talking about. These are the people that will go and vote. So forget the polls. We are educating the people as to why they should not vote APC into government, with reasons, in the language they understand.
Yeah, but the APC are also out there.
Right, we'll tell them they are in government.
In the hustings, as
yeah,
they say.
They are in government. We will tell the honest. They say they're going to do this to you. They say they're going to do. We have never seen in Katsina State, we've never seen IDPs until this government came in. A third of my state is under siege by bandits. So, are you going to entrust the state back to the APC again? The story is all over the Northwest. The Northwest is the largest voting bloc with 21 million. And we're going to go around all this country from the edges of the Sahara to the creeks of the Niger and convince our people why they should not entrust this country again to the APC, whoever comes in.
Let's turn to, well, let's stay with the political issues of the last few days. Unsurprisingly, some of it connected to the PDP's troubles. The G5 governors, led by Nyesom Wike, who've broken away from the Atiku fold, your candidate, and are slowly digging in the knife, aren't they? We heard a very strong statement from Governor Autumn of Benue, hitting out at Atiku Abubakar, saying that anyone supporting him is an enemy of the Benue people, and that he would not support a Fulani man to be president. You are yourself Fulani. Do you find that offensive?
Yeah, so let me tell you, for people that do not know, out of the hundreds of ethnic groups in the north, the Fulani ethnic group, they have had over generation, a bond of friendship, fraternal friendship with two ethnic groups. They are the Kanuris and the Thieves. Governor Autumn knows that. And any Thief man knows the friendship between Fulanis and of all, not even the houses. So you see them bantering between them. That's why once every while you hear Governor Shetima talking stuff and rubbing Atiku. So it is that. So what happened over these generations of time? So these bonds have been broken. And it is us, the leaders, the elders, if we are all frustrated and say, oh, this, and keep mentioning ethnic groups, then we are losing focus. Nobody is leaving. The Thieves are not leaving Nigeria, the Yorubas are not leaving, the Hausas, the Fulanis are leaving. We'll stay here. This signifies failure of leadership from top to bottom. All problems are local. Solutions are local. If a governor says, I am disappointed, I've written my will, people are looking up to you as a leader for solutions.
Yeah, but he was speaking in the context of attacks on his people.
Hello.
The same insecurity that you're complaining
absolutely.
about.
And let me tell you this. The largest Fulani settlement, Fulani people, is in the northwest. And we have borne brunt of these Fulani bandits longer and a lot more than anybody else.
Yeah, but that doesn't justify the attack on his
Nobody
people.
is justifying anything. And I will be the last person to tell you that. I and Shegumi, we have gone where many have not gone. Not even a politician or any general. We risked our lives, went into the forest, not at the behest of anybody, but because it is our duty and responsibility as elders in this community to do our part. We went to 8 states, I've said it again and again. And 2 years ago, when we visited President Obasanjo is all over the world making peace. He recently made peace between Togolese and we went, I and Shegumi, absolutely. We went, I and Shegumi and the team, we met Obasanjo in Abeokuta. One of the things we asked him, Mr. President, please, could you speak with Autumn? This was 2 years ago, Governor Autumn, so that we go in there, see him, see Tiv elders, see the Tortiv, and see Fulani leaders and Fulani people and see how we can quieten things down. President Obasanjo said he would, and he did. He picked the phone and called Governor Autumn. Asked Governor Autumn what he resisted that. Why? We're not from Benue. We are Nigerians. This is our country. This is our region. This is our people. Wherever there was going to be the need for us to bring peace, that was what we wanted to do.
Well, let me just remind our audience that you are the secretary to the Chief of Defense Staff's negotiating committee that negotiates hostage releases. So the official committee that works with the Nigerian Secretary of Defense. Please continue.
Right. So, and President Obasanjo came in.
Rather, the Nigerian Chief of Defense.
Right. So
Staff,
anyway, President Obasanjo came in and he met everybody. We did presentations to him here. And he was instrumental about 2 years ago in us getting a rescue of students from Federal College of Mechanization, Afaka. And he was emphatic from that time that we are not going to pay any ransom. Ransom was not going to be on the table. And we got them out. So these are leaders. So if all of us, our leaders, are saying, and we hear all the frustrations, Governor Autumn is not the first governor to air that frustration. We've had that from many of the governors in the Northwest.
So finish what you're saying. Sorry.
Anger It's just an emotion. It's not a game plan.
Right. But given all that you've described, do you see protracted, ethnically driven squabbles in this election and people voting along ethnic lines and the whole sort of issue of election integrity and focus on the issues lost in that mire?
Right. And it's true. If you look at our politics, I mean, our politics has gone back rather than going forward. Gone back in the sense that in 1979, this is exactly what we're seeing. The UPN, predominantly southwestern. The NPP, Zik, predominantly southeast. GMPP, predominantly northeast. And MPN was the only one that had the spread. So I will say PDP is like the MPN. Peter Obi is like the MPP, with the strongest base in the southeast. APC, the strongest hold is in the northwest. Politics is about reaching out and getting people all together.
Yeah, but they're all trying to have a much wider spread.
Yeah, and they are trying. They keep trying. And that is politics. People should keep trying.
But you have to concede that some of the parties are newer kids on the block than others, and they're building. They're trying to build. Yeah,
and that's good. That's good. NNPP, NNPP is like PRP of that time, but a lot more contracted. So we have gone back. We have retracted back to our regions like before, but the PDP is a more experienced political animal than the APC or any of these other parties. So and to reach out and do the connections that will get it to victory.
Well, I mean, people would say that you would say that, wouldn't you? Because that's the party that you support. And there are people who are looking at these deep divisions in the country that you've so eloquently described as they watch the campaigns, the upcoming elections, and are questioning the future of this country's democracy to an extent. As you watch things unfold, does that concern you?
The big concern for me is insecurity. The big concern for me is.
But those are all things that will have an impact on democracy.
Good. And our democracy is fragile. And I've said it again and again at a time when we are having insecurity the worst in our lifetime. Corruption, excruciating poverty amongst our people, increases the chasm, the difference between our people. And politicians that want to use those differences instead of uniting us, they're using those differences for their. And I've said it before and before. APC Muslim ticket, I've said, is neither for God nor country, but they want to divide people on religious line just to get the votes because they are excluding a very large chunk of the society, Christians. Our politics must reflect our diversity. And the APC, the Muslim ticket of the APC is disrespectful to the large chunk of our population. It's not reflective of that diversity. So we are dividing that. That's why all of us, we need to come in together. Our utterances, especially leaders, must be responsible.
Right. We've got about a minute or so left. Fascinating talking with you, by the way. In the light of, I think the most important thing to end with is the issue of your own candidate, who you support. In light of this continuing squabble in the PDP, which seems to be getting worse, not better, how do you rate the chances of your candidate, Atiku Abubakar? You have to admit it looks very dicey for him.
No. I honestly, I'm not worried at all. They all come back. So where is Wiki going? APC? Where is Wiki going? Is he going to Labour? Is he going to MNNPP? Is he going to?
Yeah, but he's not supporting your candidate.
They will all come back. Plus, Wiki does not control all the votes in Rivers State. Neither does Autumn. Neither do the other.
Yeah, but your candidate could use all the votes that he can get his hands on. Absolutely.
Right. And we are reaching out to people to realize that politics is beyond a person. They are all loyal members of the PDP, and they will come back to the fold. I have no doubt. But fellow Nigerians, 2023 election is going to be a referendum on the APC that has failed this country, and it will be suicidal. It will be suicidal for us to entrust the future of our children and grandchildren to this same party. Okay. That's why I'm doing this fight, for our children and grandchildren.
On that note, Professor Usman Yusuf. I want to thank you very much indeed. And Professor Yusuf is a public policy expert, secretary to the Chief of Defense Staff's committee that negotiated the release of the last batch of trained hostages, and he was also executive secretary of Nigeria's National Health Insurance Scheme. Thank you very much indeed. And last but not least, he's a supporter of Atiku Abubakar.
Strong supporter too. Thank you.